Doomsday versus 682, DC versus SCP. You've probably heard of this matchup already, and you probably have an opinion on it. There is so much active support and so much active disdain towards it that I have seen. There's just so many conflicting ideas on whether or not this should happen, how would this work, etc, etc. And I used to love this idea, like really love it, for its unique debate. I think the variety of debating is a really underrated variety that should be present in Death Battle episodes. However, it is now a bit more complicated. I should say first and foremost that while there are exceptions, I don't usually like matchups where the survivability of one or both characters is the biggest issue. I understand that it being a death battle kind of implies that a character dying should be important to the outcome, but I much prefer it when characters can definitely die, and then it's the other factors that end up deciding what happens, like what the outcome is, because that's the more interesting stuff to me anyway. However, I will say that this one is so absurd in that regard, in just the survivability of the characters, that it's hard to not get intrigued by the concept of who would win, how would this go, what the hell could even happen here. It kind of comes full circle to being interesting to me again, so that's really cool. And I can definitely say that this is one of those matchups where the Death Battle cast episode influenced my opinion on it, but both positively and negatively, strangely enough, because the conversations that were happening on the Death Battle cast episode were super interesting, and it's just an amazing hypothetical in my opinion, like I said before. But I also can't help but think, was the Death Battle cast episode the best way to discuss this idea? Would trying to pair an animation with this super complex idea actually be doing a disservice to the matchup? Because how can you make it entertaining but also be truthful to what the fight dynamic is actually like and to how it would actually unfold? Is there actually a way to meet that middle ground? And like I've said many times before, you need to make sure that you can do the animation well before you turn a matchup into an episode of Death Battle. And I'm not saying that it couldn't work, they might be able to pull it off, but they need to be sure, they need to find that middle ground of being representative of what the fight is, but also being entertaining. I do, however, think that the chances for this episode happening are higher than ever. It kind of feels like they might do it to test out SCP, like to see how it works, and if it works well, maybe they'll bring in one or two more characters later down the line, but it would definitely be a different experience no matter what happens, you know, and some people don't tend to take too kindly to that, so I'm just warning you that if you want this episode and if you get it, be prepared for something weird.